You know the feeling. You're staring at your phone, trying to book a table at that new spot everyone's raving about, but it's completely booked out for weeks. Or you show up and you're greeted by a giant line. Well, let's pull back the curtain on this because what feels like your personal dinner headache is actually this huge, hidden tug-of-war between the restaurants and, well, us, the diners.
And really, that's the big question, isn't it? It should be so simple. You're hungry, they've got the food. But underneath that simple idea is this really complex dance of competing needs, a total mismatch in what both sides are actually hoping for.
And here it is, the heart of the conflict. For restaurants, predictability is everything. Their profit margins are already paper thin, so every empty seat is money down the drain. But for us, the diners, we want the exact opposite. We want a guaranteed table for ourselves, but we also want complete freedom to change our plans at the last minute. And right there, that's the problem. Those two goals just don't mix.
To really get it, let's step into the restaurant shoes for a minute. For them, an empty chair isn't just a bummer, it's a direct hit to their bank account. And the number one threat to keeping that dining room full? Oh yeah, it's the dreaded no-show.
The scale of this problem is, well, it's kind of shocking. On any given night, about 20% of all reservations just don't show up. Think about that for a second. That's 1 in every 5 tables that a restaurant was counting on just sitting empty. It's a massive financial blow.
And you won't believe this, but it gets even worse. On the most important nights of the entire year, we're talking New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, that rate can literally double to a catastrophic 40%. These are the nights that are supposed to keep a restaurant in business, and nearly half the reservations can just evaporate.
And the damage goes way deeper than just the lost sale. It's like an iceberg. The obvious cost is the empty table. Sure, but underneath the surface, you're paying staff just to answer phones and manage bookings. You're creating this logistical nightmare of trying to balance reservations with walk-ins. And worst of all, you're turning away real paying customers for a table that someone else decided not to use.
So at the end of the day, it's this huge, high-stakes trade-off. On a slow Tuesday night, reservations are a godsend. They guarantee you'll have some business. But on a slam Saturday night, they become this massive gamble where just 1 or 2 no-shows means you held a table empty while actual customers walked away.
Okay, so now let's flip the menu and look at this from our side of the table. Because while restaurants are busy crunching numbers, we're dealing with feelings. And nothing gets us more worked up than the simple act of waiting.
This quote from The Guardian, I know it's a little harsh, but it kind of perfectly captures that feeling of frustration, right? We live in an on-demand world now, so the idea of standing in a physical line just feels, well, it feels ancient. It turns a fun night out into an annoying test of your patience.
And there's actual psychology behind why waiting is so painful. First, if you're occupied, like if you can grab a drink at the bar, the wait doesn't feel as long. Second, uncertainty is pure torture. Not knowing how long you'll be waiting makes it feel endless. But the absolute worst, the one that really gets us, it's when a wait feels unfair. Like when you see someone else get a table before you and you have no idea why.
So where do we actually draw the line? Well, the data here is super revealing. Turns out we're mostly okay with the reasonable rules. Like holding a table for 15 minutes? Fine, that makes sense. But getting charged a fee because a friend in your group had to cancel? That's where we start getting angry.
And when you look at what we feel is straight up unfair, the picture gets crystal clear. That penalty for not having your full party, what they call a short show, is just off the charts. People hate it. It's pretty obvious that we've drawn a psychological line in the sand, and that policy is way over it.
So this brings us right to the battleground. This is where restaurants are trying to enforce rules to protect their business, and we diners are pushing back based on what we feel is fair, what's convenient, and what's just plain wrong.
And this really leads to the million-dollar question for the entire restaurant world. What's the verdict? Which rules are actually fair game and which ones are just going to make customers angry and never come back?
This data basically gives us a scorecard. Just look at the policies for holding a table for a bit. Customers know about it, they get it, they think it's fair, no problem. But then you slide over to those short show penalties. They fail on every single measure. The really interesting one is the credit card guarantee, which is sitting right there in the middle. We understand why they do it, but we really don't like it. It just shows you what a delicate balancing act this is.
Putting these two policies right next to each other shows you everything you need to know. One policy is totally acceptable. The other one makes people furious. But why? The answer has nothing to do with the money or even the time. It's about something way deeper.
It all boils down to one simple, incredibly powerful word: control. We are totally willing to accept the consequences for things that we feel are within our control, like, showing up on time. But we will fight tooth and nail against being penalized for things we feel we can't control.
And when you actually dig into the comments from customers, this idea of control is everywhere. Look at the feedback on those show policies. The single biggest complaint isn't about the money, it's about having no control. People bring up totally valid points, like, what if my friend's car breaks down? Or what if someone in my family gets sick? You're essentially being punished for the unpredictability of life.
Okay, so with all this back and forth, it's pretty clear the old system is kind of broken. So where do we go from here? Well, it's probably not a surprise that technology is stepping in to try and broker some kind of peace treaty in this war.
One of the most game-changing ideas out there is something called restaurant ticketing. You've got platforms like Tock leading the way, and the idea is to treat a reservation less like a casual promise and more like what it is: a commodity. You're buying a ticket, just like you would for a concert or a movie.
Now, for restaurants, the upside here is huge. When people have some skin in the game, when they've actually paid for something, no-shows practically disappear. Suddenly, the restaurant knows exactly who's coming and when, which lets them manage their staff and their food inventory perfectly. It basically solves their biggest problem: predictability.
And hey, this isn't just for super fancy 3 Michelin star places. Starbucks actually used this exact system for its huge Chicago roastery. They sold tickets for these special coffee experiences, and they sold out almost instantly. It just goes to show you that this model has legs for a much bigger market.
Of course, ticketing isn't going to work for every single restaurant. So for a lot of places, the future is probably going to be a hybrid model. You make the planners happy by offering some reservations. You keep the spontaneous people happy by holding tables for walk-ins, and, this is the key part, you use technology to give those walk-ins a transparent digital wait list which attacks that feeling of uncertainty that we all hate so much.
And this all leads us to one final, pretty provocative thought. As technology makes all this booking stuff more efficient, it also opens the door to things like dynamic pricing. So the next time you go to book a table, the question might not be if you can get in, but how much you're willing to pay for that perfect 7 p.m. slot on a Saturday night. The tug of war isn't over, it's just turning into a negotiation.